Space
Yeah,
Force
Space
totally gets
Force.
us down.
Well, the Coast Guard is technically DOT,
Yes.
Department of Transportation.
Although, you know, I see some videos sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Some of those guys are bored.
Rescue divers and pilots.
They got some pretty skilled people.
Rescue swimmer. He was featured on a few of the episodes on the Weather Channel. It was really cool that we could
You know
watch
what I
it,
would
and
be
then we
like,
would
I
go
think I
out
could do it.
and okay, tell me about the hook in that guy's eye.
Yeah.
We're not waiting on Mr. Shearer.
No. Steve.
I guess kicking it made it go.
No wonder it went down. You set me up.
I didn't sit down. Sorry.
Can't hear it.
Hold on. I don't want to get feedback.
Right.
Okay, we're streaming, but we don't have sound yet.
I got it.
You got, okay, we're good now.
All right. Perfect. All right. It is 7:03. We are streaming now live. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening. We have a presentation to start our meeting. Presentation number 1, current and future supply options, KMEA presentation, led by Gons.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. For the past several years, KMEA has helped provide energy supply options to member cities. One example is Marshall Wind Farm in 2016 and Dogwood Energy in 2018. Tonight we have a presentation from KMEA, Neil Daney, about current and future supply options.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Gons. This quick will work.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you everyone for your time today. I'm Neil Daney. I handle the power supply for Kansas Municipal Energy Agency over there in Overland Park. And we've been your power provider for probably the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sorry.
If you could step
Yes.
up.
Let's see if we can get this. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so when we put together a power supply, I guess I can see right here. We put together a power supply. We like to have a lot of different colors in the pie chart. And Gons and the staff here has done a really good job of putting a lot of different resources into the pie chart at the city of Gardner. So this is where you currently stand at 2023 with Grand River Dam Authority, which is a cost-based resource out of Oklahoma. For your base load, Dogwood, which is a combined cycle in Pleasant Hill, Marshall Wind, which he'd mentioned, which is a wind facility, and then a Federal Hydro, WAPA, and then you get a little bit out of the SPP market. Please stop me if you guys have any questions along the way. So this is a low duration curve. So what this does is take your peak hour of the year and stack it with your lowest consumption of the year. And so if you stack it, it's that blue curve. So your peak was 48, 49 megawatts sometime in July or August of 2023, and then it just goes down to a minimum of right around 10 megawatts. And that probably happened sometime in April or October, or one of those months where you're not really consuming a lot of energy. Those are all your resources stacked on top of it. So capacity is the ability to produce energy. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to get it from that facility, but you guys have your Gardner units, which you claim is capacity. Then you have GRDA, and you have WAPA, and then you get quite a bit of capacity from Dogwood and a little bit from your wind facility. So you can see that in 2024, 2025, we're okay. In 26, when we lose GRDA, and then probably looking for a little bit of a D-rate with your Gardner units. That's why I kind of highlighted that in 2026. You might be a little capacity deficient, but we've got a solution that we're going to talk about with the solar project and then some other things. So the options to kind of cure this short position are the NextEra large-scale solar project is the project I really want to focus on. And then sometime probably in the first of the year, we'll come back and talk about Grand River Dam Authority for an extension there for your base load or your 24 by 7 energy or 7 by 24. And then fixed energy capacity contracts, which we've had over the last few, probably 10 years with the Energy Management Group project within your community. We share a little bit of excess capacity. And then the other options, so those are more purchase power agreements where you just pay, you get a bill from KMEA and then you just pay those bills as they come along. The other option are ownership options. So we've looked at community solar over the last few years, or you can build new generation. Both certainly doable, but a little more costly than the current options are number one right now. So just like everything else over the last few years, energy markets have been trending upward. So what this does is these graphs just kind of talk about the 7 by 24, which would be comparable to the production that you get from GRDA. GRDA comes with capacity and energy, and just to kind of give you a barometer, what you're currently paying for Grand River Dam Authority, capacity and energy, is comparable to just the energy that we're seeing in the market today. And that's the green bar. So if you go back to 2018, 2019 timeframe, we were getting these 7 by 24 fixed energy deals for $25 a megawatt hour or 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and selling into our KMEA members. And then if you look at a 5 by 16 annual, which would be a profile that would be very similar to a solar profile, except a solar profile is available 7 days a week whenever the sun is shining. This would be available Monday through Friday for a fixed amount. And then lastly, 5 by 16 summer only is a piece that's just available June, July, August, and September, typically when production is the highest. We were doing these deals 4, 5, 6 years ago at $33.45 a megawatt hour, and now the energy offers are over $70. So it just kind of goes in line with eggs, bread, everything that we kind of are touching now are going up, 30, 40%. Energy is no different. Same thing with capacity, and that's the ability to produce energy. We're sharing some capacity with our other Kansas Municipal Energy members here, with the City of Ottawa, City of Baldwin City, and some other members that you're a part of. A few years ago, that market again was a third of what it is coming to in the next few years. So another example of things are increasing. What I want to talk about is this large-scale solar project that is being developed by NextEra, and this is a project we've had in the works for probably 2.5 years. Prices have been bouncing around all over with this project, just as supply chain issues. We had COVID, we had interest rate hike, we've had a lot of things working against us, so the price has been bouncing around. But this project basically covers a lot of your on-peak needs, and that's when consumption is the highest. With this purchase power agreement, there is no money required like there would be with a community project, where you would have to come up with some money and then pay the debt service, whether or not the facility is producing or not. This is a project that's located in Pratt County, which is west of Wichita, about 70 miles, and you only pay for the production that the facility is producing. So if the facility gets hit by a hailstorm, gets hit by a tornado, is out for 6 months until they repair it, insurance repairs it, then the city of Gardner and all of our other members don't pay for that energy until it gets back up and running. So that's a really good benefit. The fact that there is the ability with, you saw in the capacity chart, with wind and with other renewables to claim some capacity. You can't claim the full amount like you could with your with your gas turbines, just because it's an intermittent resource. It's not available all the time, so you don't get to claim it all. But there are, in this first tranche of large-scale renewables and community solar, they are targeting 40 to 50% of nameplate. So if KMEA subscribes to, call it 100 megawatts, we'll be able to claim close to 50 megawatts for our members. And if the city of Gardner subscribed to 15 megawatts, you'd be able to claim 7.5, so on. The fact that it comes with capacity means that you don't have to purchase capacity on that chart that I showed earlier, where you guys are going to be a little bit short in the outward years in 26, 27, 28. That goes to cover that short position, comes at no additional cost to this project. So that's part of it. The fixed energy is at $50 a megawatt hour, but the capacity comes with it. So when you throw in the fact that you do not have to purchase capacity at that $6 kW a month range, or $6,000 a megawatt, then it brings the price down to $36 a megawatt hour, which is a really good deal in today's environment where energy and capacity is just increasingly elevating. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but this is a product that you guys currently have in your portfolio. We're looking to do a GRDA extension. This is going to cover your 7x24 energy needs, and we're going to talk more about this probably in like a January meeting. But this is kind of the historical pricing of GRDA. You can see it's pretty stable. It did have a little hiccup here in 21, 22. That was during Winter Storm Uri, and then everyone kind of got hit with that, and then there was a cost recovery for a year or two until it stabilized. But you can see it's been a relatively stable, very flat product over the last 15 to 20 years. So this is what we're kind of looking at moving forward for your energy mix, and you can see it's got a lot of the same products and then a couple new ones. GRDA, we're taking it somewhere between 4.5 and 9 is kind of a nice number. You guys currently have 9 megawatts right now. Anywhere between 4.5 and 9 would be a reasonable number. We just want something in there to cover that consumption that you guys have every hour of every day. And then large-scale solar, we're looking at 15 megawatt allocation. You guys are right around a 48 megawatt peak. 15 megawatts seems like a lot of a large-scale solar project, but keep in mind it's only available 25, 26% of the time, just because it's only available when the sun is shining. So even though it's a 15 megawatt allocation, it only represents about 21% of your annual energy consumption, which is a really good number when you're trying to blend in baseload resources with wind, with solar, with some market, and then with some combined cycle. So this is looking at your capacity position. Remember in the previous slide, we were a little bit short, and then when we get to 26 and 27 with the 4.5 megawatts of GRDA, and then we throw in large-scale solar, which is supposed to go COD around January, spring of 2027, it cures that short position there, which is a really good thing. And then if we looked at the low duration curve with 4.5 megawatts of GRDA, you can see that we've got a lot of white in here. On this x-axis, where this orange line is going across, we kind of like to see that cover quite a bit of your low duration curve. We kind of want that 10 megawatts is kind of your minimum of where your load hits. So we kind of like something to hit in there between your zero consumption and your 10 megawatts. So something in between that 0 and 10 is a really good number. Anywhere between 4.5 and 9 would be a reasonable number. You currently have 9 today, and you're a growing community. Not all of our communities are growing, but the city of Gardner certainly is a growing community. And this is what it looks like with your combined cycle. Those other resources that I showed are more your fixed PPA contracts, and those are just the energy is produced, KMEA sends you a bill, and they're relatively flat, relatively stable. Your combined cycle plant runs on natural gas mainly, and then it has a steam turbine as well. But The way that that one works is basically we procure gas on a daily time frame. So it's spot gas, and then that resource is offered into the market. So when that resource is economical, it's running on behalf of Gardner and the other 4 members that are participating in that project, but it's not a fixed price project. So it does float with where natural gas goes. So that's where I want to kind of show you, that's where you're covered with more fixed price resources, and that's where you're covered when you throw in the dogwood ownership interest, which is a little more, floats with the market. So this one didn't cover, well, it kind of doesn't cover the whole page, but is there any way to scroll down a little bit, or? Okay, no problem. But basically, if we were to see the very bottom, you guys are right around 4.5, between 4.5 and 5 cents on your wholesale energy rates, which are fantastic, probably some of the lowest in the state of Kansas. And with this proposal, you would continue to be in that 4.5 to 5 cent cost per megawatt hour, or per kilowatt hour, $45 a megawatt hour. So with that, I will leave it for you all to ask any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Neil. I like the fact that we're staying, with good rates there. So, you could have just got up and said that. I probably kidding, of course. Questions from council? Steve, yes.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It's very helpful, especially with the 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour wholesale cost. I like that. I also like the large scale solar. When you start lining that up with the real high demand times in the summer, particularly in the summer months, during the daytime when the temperatures are up and our loads are high, that's a pretty cost effective way, and it makes use of the major pluses of solar and takes advantage of something. My biggest question, or I want to understand, is why are we moving away from 9 megawatts of GRDA, which is essentially hydroelectric? Why are we moving from 9 to 4.5?
That's something that we modeled. I've worked with Gons. We've modeled 4.5. We've modeled 9. That's something that's easily, if the group wants to go and retain the 9, something easily we could do. It's just that we. Do you want?
Yes, for the purpose of this presentation, and I think I brought this GRDA before, is to use 4.5. Before we can extend the GRDA PPA, I was planning to do a formal presentation and recommend 4.5, but we could go as high as 9. So that 4.5 is the minimum I think we need to get from GRDA. But we can go as 9 if City Council decides to go with 9.
What's driving your recommendation?
The 4.5, part of the master plan, we compared the cost of GRDA with other options. One of the other options was increase the capacity of the 2 gas turbines, because the cost kilowatts per dollars per kilowatt were a lot lower than the GRDA.
Okay.
So if we get...
That would be for peak production periods, is that correct?
So the reason is to get more capacity if we have additional peak demand. But that was the reason why 4.5. If we decide not to move forward with the upgrades, then I would recommend going with the 9.
And both of you guys only had one other area that I wanted to ask about. What do you see happening over the next, now that the elections are over, what do you see happening with the cost of natural gas over the next 2 years? What's your prediction?
I think hopefully it's going to remain relatively stable. The one thing there's plenty of natural gas. It's just a matter of tapping into it, and then liquefied natural gas overseas could play a part in what producers do with the domestic production. So if that takes off, which is predicted to do in the next 2 or 3 years, then that could drive up domestic natural gas. But for the next 12 months, 18 months,
at least stabilizing possibly.
I do, and I think that's what the forward gas curves would represent. So.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Steve. Mark?
So now I have the question. GRDA does not provide us any of that capacity calculation, or do they?
It does.
Okay.
It does, yes, sir.
Some credit.
Yep. So with GRDA, you get the full credit, and that actually comes with reserves. So not to complicate things, but looking at this chart here, you have a peak of around 47 megawatts, and then SPP, which is the RTO we're in, requires 15% reserve margin on top of that. So you have to carry another 15% on top of that. So the other resources don't come with reserves, like your Dogwood facility doesn't. WAPA does, and so does Grand River Dam Authority. So those already come with a reserve, the 15% already added on top of it before it gets delivered. So another benefit.
I have one question. Sure. So is that what drives the cost as high as $70 a megawatt for on demand?
For
in your one chart, you had on demand, peak on demand.
Oh.
As high as that prices.
Oh.
Could you explain that for us?
This year, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of things working against us here domestically. We've got the retirement of coal units. We've got AI growth, which if you guys have been reading or seeing any of the stories on artificial intelligence, takes 10, 15, 20, 50 times the energy that it does for like just a normal Google search. And so you've got organic growth where we just have more load growth. So you've got AI, you've got crypto, you've got, you've seen it here, just residential is increased your load growth. But the main drivers are basically crypto, AI, and then...
Do EVs play a part of that?
EVs do too, yes, EVs do too. So those would be your three main ones. So on the heels of Winter Storm Uri, there were a lot of utilities that got caught in a short position, and this was that event.
That was the event in Texas.
It happened in Texas and then all over Southwest Power.
As a result.
Yes, sir. So that was the cold spell where it basically was below freezing in all the states except for I think Florida. So that caused a lot of utilities to be short. And so as a result, they had a lot of contracts that they had for 10 or 15 years where they were very attractive pricing. When that hit, prices went to $4,000 a megawatt here. In Texas, is capped out. I think it was $10,000 at the time.
So if I understand your presentation correctly, it looks like our biggest risk is peak production or peak demand. Is that correct? That's our biggest variable hole. We really don't know what we have to build.
Well, you don't. And when I first started this industry back in the late 90s, it was the summer that everyone wanted to protect, and that's the period that could go to $5,000, $10,000 a megawatt. And now it's more of the winters. That's where you see a lot of the volatility in the marketplace, just because of what happened during Winter Storm Uri, and can it happen again?
Well, and also the question that these data centers, AI, and some of the large demands, that's starting to level out. If I understand you correctly, that's starting to level out the demand across the country. Is that correct?
Well, I think we're still on the precipice of the AI. I still think that hasn't hit the market yet. But the EVs, I think that's probably trending to slow down a little bit.
Where do you see the sources coming from? Dependable and reliable sources. We've shut down a lot of the coal power plants across the country, and now we're shutting down capacity. If I understand you correctly, we're shutting down capacity nationally. Yeah. And we're raising demand nationally and in our community. So we have a reduction of supply and increase of demand, and then we have variable demand. And one last thing, if the demand is leveling out a little bit more, these data centers and other factors, that would tend to negate what I'm hearing is, and I think you're hinting at, is that overall costs are going to be going up substantially over the next few years.
They will be. Yeah, they will be. Cost of new construction. So utilities right now, you can't really build nuclear, you can't really build any coal. So what it's going to force, the fossil fuel of choice is going to be gas. So it's in a combined cycle or simple cycle gas. So that's what that, but it's taking a little bit of time to get through the process. I think we're seeing it now as a nation, like, hey, we have to build something reliable, and it's trending towards that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
It's
sir.
been very helpful. I appreciate it.
Mark.
I did have one more.
Oh, yes,
Sorry.
sir.
Did you say the one in near Wichita, but the one in was it Platte County? Is that up and running? Or is that?
It is not. So it's about half subscribed right now. KMEA would be close to half of it. And then they have another 25 megawatts with KEPCO. It would be another off-taker, which is a co-op here in Kansas. And then the other 25 to 30% still yet to be determined. But that would be COD, commercial operation date, January, is what they're targeting right now, January of 2027. So they're looking to get all the subscribers, then secure the panels, and then go ahead and build the project sometime in the next couple of years.
Forgive me, my power's been out for 6 days as a result of the upgrade. But I wasn't able to receive you. Have we, Johnson, we got this presentation, have we received it?
No, we did not.
Is there any way we can get that distributed to council members?
Yeah, sure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
And my plans is to bring to City Council the solar proposal on the December 16th meeting for a recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. No public hearings. We'll move to public comments. Members of the Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of the public hearing. If you wish to come forward, please. Seeing no one.
I'm a little cricket.
All right. No public comment. So we will move to consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda council would like to remove? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second McNair. We approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Consent agenda passes. No planning and zoning consent. We'll move to committee recommendations. Number 1, consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from C1 Central Business District to R1 Single Family Residential District for potential daycare center on 2.6 acres located on the east side of Moonlight Road, approximately 300 feet north of East Cottage Creek Drive. Mr. Noppick.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Dave Noppick, Community Development Director. I'm going to talk a little bit about both of these items because they're closely related. It's easier for me to just give you one presentation, and as you have questions, we can go from there. But we will require 2 separate actions on this item. So this item came before city staff through a relatively routine process. The daycare was filing their application with the state for their state licensure for the facility itself over on Moonlight, which is the old New Life Church location there on Moonlight. At the time, we do a routine check of the zoning and everything because when we sign off for the state application, we're verifying that the zoning is correct and that the use is allowed within that zoning district. During that process, what we found was a piece of remnant zoning that nobody seems to know where it originated from, but it was a C1 commercial district that goes from Moonlight actually beyond the eastern boundary of this property onto 2 residential properties in the adjacent single-family subdivision. So for the rezoning piece, the boundary of the rezoning for the C1 property actually does not align with just the boundaries of the church property. It's actually offset on the north, and it splits through the building that is there, and then it also extends out into the 2 residential properties there. One of the things you might note, and this is why we believe this is just a remnant zoning from a previous zoning code, because our C1 district is really restricted to our downtown area under our current code. There are certain elements of that code, like no parking necessary on site that are part of our C1 district. So that led us to believe that somehow this was originally rezoned for some commercial purpose under a previous code that we had in place prior to our current code. With that in mind, the staff talked to the applicant about cleaning up the zoning because one of the problems would be that if they wanted to operate a daycare there, because the building is split by the zoning district, while they would have certain rights under the commercial district to have the daycare, other parts of the building they could not use because it was zoned residential. So the easiest cleanup is to take this C1 zoning, down zone it to R1. In that process, though, you're giving up the right to have the daycare in the commercial district, because in our R1 district you have to have a conditional use permit to have a daycare. So that's where these two now become very related. The applicant did agree with the downzoning portion of this, and actually the city is taking care of the zoning piece of this, so there was no cost to the applicant on the rezoning, because this also helps the two residential properties to the east. So that's kind of the simple explanation for the rezoning piece. Then the conditional use permit piece, which I alluded to, is essentially necessary to allow the daycare to utilize the full property, including the entire building, because if you approve the rezoning, the property would go to the R1 district. The conditional use permit is then required under that process. So with that, I will just open it for questions from me, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Dave. Public comments, any council questions?
I guess one. So let's say that the daycare, something happens, it doesn't continue on. And so now this area is all residential. Does that then limit what the next applicant would be able to do? Would they be, be able to go back to something else?
So there are other uses under the single family zoning district that are allowed in that district. Usually schools and churches and things like that are allowed up to a certain limit, up to a certain size. Then they may require a conditional use permit. So a new conditional use permit would likely be the case there. This would prevent most of your commercial uses, which are in our commercial districts. So
yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, you can't split off the other like truly residential pieces of this at all,
it's
a small fee.
Yeah, and
Small
the hard part really is on the residential pieces, the two to the east in particular. If they came in to add on to their houses, we'd have to assess them according to the commercial zoning requirements on setbacks and things. So it's very restrictive on several fronts for most of these property owners.
Well, yeah, I think Bob called it mystery zoning.
Yeah.
And I was thinking along Mark's thought there too. You know, it's already essentially a commercial type business. Wouldn't we want to keep the C1? But that leads to, I think the only way to do that would be to replat to fix the other issues. And this seems like a more elegant way to do it.
Yeah.
You'd
have to do one of two things. You would have to replat potentially to move that property boundary to align with the zoning district, or you'd have to do that sliver of a piece in a rezoning to commercial and also clean up the residential properties. This was just an easier way. And the term, as much as I'd love to give our staff the credit for coming up with the term mystery zoning, that actually appeared in a previous staff report on a separate item that was before the council back in the 2000s on this piece.
So we have precedent.
There was research done trying to figure it out. Yeah, so mystery zoning came from that staff report. So
how did those houses get built in a C1 zone?
Or resold.
The mystery.
Mystery zoning, okay.
Yeah, we are just not sure how that got done at all, because it should have been caught when that area was platted for the single family residential. At that point, that zoning piece should have been caught and it should have been changed there. So, but it was not.
So the upside of this is that the building and the land that's there now, the best uses of that are consistent with what they've been used for, this conditional use permit. And the upside of the conditional use permit is it gives us, the city, control over what those properties are being used for, and we can run a pretty thorough investigation of what's going to happen. Is that correct?
Partially. What I will say is it's not really a whole lot of city control. It gives the state the indication that they are in line with our local ordinances, so everything will operate there. And what it also does for us is it would be very hard for us to regulate the non-use of a portion of a building on that property. So this alleviates us from that administrative burden. So that's more so the issue than
This,
anything.
as Mark said, it sounds like a very elegant solution. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, yeah, 'cause, future use could always deal with all the minutia
issues.
and
Right.
go back to C1 if they wanted to rezone and
Right.
so on.
Correct.
But you're getting this applicant the ability to do what they want to do, no extra cost, and it fixes things for the other residents. So it's
It
a
makes
good
us
thing.
compliant with the state. That's
And
a
if
good
it,
thing.
if it is R1,
Mhm.
then it can go back to being a church without needing a conditional use permit?
Depending on size and operation and things like that, because we have different levels of assembly that are allowed or may require a conditional use permit or may need to be rezoned back, yeah.
Would the way that New Life used that before they moved, would that be an allowable use?
Not the way the zoning is currently aligned, because part of
If
the
it went to
building
R1,
is
if it went
residential.
to R1, would
Yeah.
that, with the size of that church, that the building would have the capacity to support, would that be supported?
I'd have to check, because it's all based on the assembly numbers, and I don't know what they were approved for by the fire
Okay.
district.
Thank you,
That's
sir.
the issue,
Okay.
so.
All right. So, let's, we can kind of get these both at the same time, but do I have
It's-
a motion?
I believe there's two separate ordinances
Sure.
actually on that, okay.
Do I have a motion for committee recommendation one?
So moved.
Second.
I heard, okay, McNair, motion McNair, second Baldwin. We accept the recommendation of the planning commission to approve ordinance number 2816, an ordinance changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner, Kansas. Clerk?
Councilmember Wee.
Yes.
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton.
Yes.
Mayor Winters.
Yes. 2816 passes. And then do I hear a motion for new business item 2?
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNair, second Baldwin. We adopt ordinance number 2817, approving conditional use permit 24-305-02 as recommended by the planning commission.
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Wee.
Yes.
2817 passes. Thank you, Dave.
I can hear where sheep is supposed to be.
No old business and new business. Item number 1, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the construction of certain sewage system improvements, and authorizing general obligation bonds to be issued in an amount not to exceed $3,100,000 to pay the cost of such improvements, all pursuant to KSA 12-617 and 12-618. And Director Wolf, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. On November 4th, 2024, the City Council awarded a construction contract for Wynwood Park Relief Sewer Project, WW8010. The city plans to finance the design and construction of the improvement using general obligation bonds over 15 years. The estimated total project cost is $3.1 million. In order for the city to reimburse itself from future bond proceeds for expenses related to the project, the city must formally approve its intent to do so. Adopting the proposed resolution fulfills the city's obligation. Future debt service payments will come from the wastewater fund. It is staff's recommendation that you adopt the proposed resolution.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Council, do you have questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second McNair. We consider adopting a resolution authorizing the construction of certain sewerage system improvements and authorizing general obligation bonds to be issued in an amount not to exceed $3,100,000 to pay the cost of such improvements, all pursuant to KSA 12-617 and 12-618.
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Wee.
Yes.
That's resolution 2154.
Thank you. Resolution 2154 passes. New business item number 2, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the construction of certain public building improvements and authorizing general obligation bonds to be issued in an amount not to exceed $5,040,000 to pay the cost of such improvements, all pursuant to KSA 12-1736.
On November 4th, 2024, the City Council awarded a construction contract for the new Utilities Maintenance Building. The City plans to finance the design and construction of the improvement using general obligation bonds over a 15-year term. The estimated total project cost is $5.04 million. In order for the city to reimburse itself for future bond proceeds, the city must formally approve its intent to do so. Adopting the proposed resolution fulfills that's the city's obligation. Annual debt service payments will come from the wastewater fund, and transfers will be made from water and electric funds to the wastewater fund to help support the debt service payments. It is staff's recommendation that you adopt the proposed resolution.
All right, thank you again. Council, do you have any questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin. We consider adopting a resolution authorizing the construction of certain public building improvements and authorizing general obligation bonds to be issued in an amount not to exceed $5,040,000 to pay the cost of such improvements, all pursuant to KSA 12-1736. City Clerk.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ween?
Yes.
Councilmember McNair?
Yes.
Resolution 2155 passes. All right, thank you. All right, that concludes regular session. We'll move to council updates. God, start.
A couple of updates. Keel Creek expansion, the dirt work, we have reached the subgrade desired level. So we're at the level where the construction will start. It looks like we gain a month. Hopefully the weather will cooperate so we can still have a month ahead of schedule. On the maintenance building, preliminary works will start next week. So we'll see a lot of machinery for the construction of the new building.
Great.
How deep do we have to go, Gonson?
For the oxidation basin was 20 feet. And for the clarifier, we had to go an additional 9, so 20 and 29.
Do we have much for rock?
We found some, and they just chipped away the rock. As I mentioned before, the original plan was to use explosives, but there was no need to do that. Also because of the risk.
Oh, come on, pull the wire.
Also because of the risk of damaging the existing structures.
Would we have been invited if there were explosives, though?
You probably would have to hear it from your home, probably.
We also would have heard it on CFG.
Yeah, that would have been.
I definitely want an invite for that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Jason? Dave?
Just one quick item. We will not have a planning commission meeting here in the month of November. We had no items to place on that agenda.
Cal?
Nothing tonight.
Chief?
This past week, K-9 Yukon and Officer Laurent went in service. They completed their training and are deployed as a team. 2 weeks ago, Officer Jolly celebrated 5 years with Gardner Police Department.
Congrats.
And Officer Fetcher was released to solo patrol this weekend.
Good.
Is K9 Yukon a drug and bite dog, or just one or the other?
He is multi-purpose.
Very good, thank you. Renee?
I do not have anything.
Matt?
Nothing tonight.
City Attorney? City Administrator?
So in case you were wondering about the email you got about the PD presentation, I believe it's Friday is the first one. There was an issue at the school board meeting last week where somebody showed up with a sign, and there's some disagreement on how to handle that situation. So we have the KLETC instructor that instructs officers across the state on that issue that's going to do the training to see if we can get on the same page with the school district. So that's what that's for.
Better be prepared and on the same page, like you said. Okay, anything else, Jim? No. Okay. Councilman McNair?
I had a couple, 2 or 3 things I wanted to mention. First off, hats off to the entire staff that put on the Veterans Day at the high school. That was just nothing short of outstanding. Veterans appreciated it. The city was well represented, and staff did an unbelievably good job. Second item, Dave, your crew over in planning and codes has done a very good. We had a little bit of an upgrade on our home. The inspection people did a phenomenal job. Mike was very good to work with. Excellent job. And last but not least, your crew and Bruce's crew did an outstanding job. We had a meter issue on Friday. They worked into the evening and got our meter going. And the guys, the commitment, the professionalism, and the service, customer service from all these people was nothing short of outstanding. Congrats to our staff. You guys are the best.
I agree.
You definitely back charging for the rest of that day, right?
All right, Councilman Wade?
Just one thing, we have another cleanup day planned for the Greenway on the 24th at 4 p.m. So, Jason, we might have some trash for you to pick up afterwards.
Is that through Parks and Rec? Or is
No, we're just doing it as there's a group of residents who get together and clean up the Greenway a little bit, go and pick up some of the trash that's a little bit deeper. We've gotten some
Nice job.
good, gently used couches out of the creek. So if we get anything good, I'll send you guys a note.
Send Mark a note.
That's a good idea versus just the one in the spring, because now you can actually see through the foliage. I like it. Good job.
Great. Council Vice President?
Nothing tonight.
Council President?
Nothing.
Okay. Just a couple quick things. I'd like to, speaking of the Veterans Program, specifically thank Danica. She puts a lot of work into that. Make sure that goes off without a hitch. So thank you. She's probably watching. Thank you. Christmas in the Park will be right before our next meeting that we're having. So it's December 2nd. Yep. And I would like to invite the council, if you would like to come up, if you're there, come up and turn the lights on or switch the lights on with me. So
No special guests. We're the special guests.
you are the special guest.
Can
Yes.
I wear bells?
You may wear whatever you would like.
Whoa.
Well,
I'll make an announcement now. My wife and I are planning a trip to Texas at this point, in Oklahoma the first week of December. That may or may not go, but it's quite possible in the second week we will not be in town.
okay. Well, if you are in town, we'd love to have you up there. You probably get a more formal invitation, but we'll do that. And then right afterwards, you should be here anyway, because right afterwards we'll have our meeting. So we'll have a little bit later meeting. So with that, I don't think I have anything else. So, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNair, second Deaton. We adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained?